Federal legislators who represent the Upper Peninsula or seek to represent it are responding to the tragedy that claimed the lives of 67 people. We have statements today from Senator Slotkin, Senator Peters, and Representative Jack Bergman. All three legislators issuing personal, heartfelt responses on social media and offering sincere condolences to the victims and their families. Rep. Jack Bergman of Michigan's 1st District says, quote, "Having flown thousands of hours both as a commercial airline pilot and as a naval aviator, I'm confident the investigation process into how this collision happened will begin immediately and will be conducted thoroughly to avoid similar tragedies from happening again." Newly elected Senator Elissa Slotkin also offered condolences, adding, quote, "As we await answers on how this occurred, we should remember those we depend on to keep the skies safe: pilots and flight attendants, ground and maintenance crew, FAA inspectors, and air traffic controllers." Senator Peters, who, as MyUP News reported on earlier this week, has announced he will not seek a second term, said, quote, "My thoughts are with the loved ones of the victims of last night's tragic plane crash on the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. I am deeply grateful to the first responders who worked through the night and did everything in their power to help." Before we get to President Trump's feud with another Northern Michigan politician, we do want to note that he held a lengthy press conference and offered condolences as well. Trump saying, quote, "On behalf of the First Lady, myself, and 340 million Americans, our hearts are shattered alongside yours, and our prayers are with you now. We'll be working very, very diligently in the days to come." However, instead of keeping the focus on victims throughout the press conference, Trump didn't mince words in blaming diversity hiring initiatives for compromising safety. He went off about how air traffic controllers need to be, quote, "brilliant," hinting that those hired under these initiatives aren't qualified, and took to the mic to attack former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg.
The FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run the Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
It's important to note that this wasn't the major focus of his statements, but his most controversial ones that made major headlines yesterday, receiving backlash from Democratic legislators. Secretary Pete Buttigieg slammed back at Trump, calling his comments, quote, "despicable," critics saying that it's not the time for blame games. Buttigieg, who the Detroit News said this week is interested in filling Gary Peters' seat, firing back, saying, quote, "As families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. President Trump now oversees the military and the FAA. One of his first acts was to fire and suspend some of the key personnel who helped keep skies safe. Time for President Trump to show actual leadership and explain what he'll do to prevent this from happening again." Also, a little tangent here, news broke yesterday from the AP that another contender for Michigan's Senate seat is former Rep. Mike Rogers. Rogers, who narrowly lost a Senate seat to Elissa Slotkin, may make an announcement soon about his intention to replace Gary Peters. That's according to sources to the Associated Press. You can find all these stories and more with our ongoing coverage at myupnow.com. We're trying to understand the tragedy and keeping it local through the voices of our federal legislators. Officials have not yet established a reason for the collision, and despite some of the theories propelled regarding DEI, President Trump did acknowledge that it was too soon to draw conclusions as he encouraged the country to pray for victims. For MyUP News, I'm Andrew Lawrencer.